Hi, it's Monday, it's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked. We're brought to you, as always, by Together 2012. We're led by disabled artists, creating a Paralympic cultural legacy in the main London 2012 host borough of Newham. I'm Ju Gosling. I'm an artist, also known as Ju90. I'm artistic director of Together 2012. And with me, where she's been locked down, stroke trapped for almost a year now, we're going to have to work out what our anniversary is for lockdown in next month, is our chair, the artist and activist, Julie Newman. Julie, do you want to squeeze a bit closer to me? I think your chair has spun round and I'm just looking at our monitor. So we're going to come back to East London for a bit of audio description in a minute and some more introduction from Julie. But at the other end of our long-wheeled virtual sofa, but all on his own today, is our co-host Robin Surgener. Do you want to introduce yourself properly and give us some audio description?
Well, yes. Hello, welcome to Monday and the oh golly, sixth week of our latest lockdown. I think it's starting to wear a little bit thin on people. So I am Robin Surgener. I am the business director at Together 2012. I'm also an artist in my own right under the name of Angry Fish. And as Ju said, I am up here in Sutton Coldfield, which today is actually sunny. I've been in the garden this morning, so that it's that nice compared with yesterday when it stayed below freezing all day. So rather strange. Anyway, so today I am sporting lovely whitey grey hair, no rimmed black armed glasses, a little bit of a red face. Sorry about that, folks. Um, but as handsome as ever, hidden behind it, obviously. Blue eyes, and today I am wearing it was grey. It's a sort of washed outy grey round neck, short armed t shirt uh, with the words Rolling Stones in white letters, and then a massive logo of pink lips and a tongue sticking out with a Union Jack on it, which is well, the lips is a very famous Rolling Stones album cover, of which Julie might know the name of the album. So it's a kind of play, the pictorial play on that album cover.
Wonderful. So, as you can tell, unfortunately, it's Boomers United today with nobody younger than me, and I'm 58. So, yes, we all recognise the t
I'm
shirt.
younger than you.
Yes, but I think still extraordinarily, although we're much younger than Julie, defined as boomers. Anyway, I'm Jude Gosling. I've got light olive skin, green eyes behind black plastic glasses, black plastic wrist braces, indeed, and silver coloured jewellery. Today, I am wearing a purple baseball cap. I've got a white long sleeved t shirt on, and over that, I've got a fleece that is quite actually new, which is extraordinary for me. Usually I go, oh, I've had this for 30 years, or that came from the charity shop. But no, this is the end of the New Year sales, which I find is always worth looking at in February. For some extraordinary reason, nobody seemed to want a fleece that's various colours in patchwork of purple, blue, orange, and yellow. You may be pleased if you can't see this for yourself, but I thought it was a bargain. And behind us, you can see more or less, depending on which angle you get through the show, of our Together 2012 graffiti banner. We produced that with a company called Graffiti Life back in 2014, and it's got representations of all the different arts activities that we cover during the year. So that's everything from drama, dance, live music, visual art, street art, carnival art, poetry, and much, much more. So, Julie, you've been very patient. Who are you? What do you look like?
I'm Julie Newman. I have gold and silver hair, mid-long,
Getting
growing.
longer.
Yes, getting longer. I have dark rimmed glasses. Today I'm wearing a grey t-shirt. Whoops, I can't work out which side is which. I'm wearing grey t-shirt with a black and white checked overshirt, and I have around my neck a lovely little turtle in a black stone with.
Actually, it's a fish.
It's okay. It's a fish. That's something
You have
else
another one,
altogether.
but
I do have another one. It's little black, shiny, polished stones which feel like jet to me. But it came from Tobago, where I went to with Jew actually to see a friend getting married, which was lovely some years ago.
yes, far too long ago. In fact, I might come back to Tobago in a minute. But first, what did we do at the weekend? On a Friday in the show, we recommend something for the weekend, things for you to do on and offline. Sometimes we follow our own recommendations, sometimes we find other things to do. Julie, what did you get up to?
Well, we watched The Dig, which I'd read an awful lot about. I was a little bit hesitant about it because I thought, oh, it's got an awful lot of publicity. Is it going to be any good? So we watched it on Netflix, which is a subscription service, and it was very interesting. I wouldn't give it a rave review myself. I thought it was very reminiscent of a Merchant Ivory film. Sort of something like um, I don't know. What's one of the Virginia Woolf ones?
I don't know, and we had this conversation yesterday where I still didn't know. So the dig is set just before and during the outbreak of the Second World War, and it's the discovery of the Sutton Hoo treasure in Suffolk. So there were these mounds that they thought were ships, and they turned out to be royal burials, which also apparently the Dark Ages they used to think had no art and culture until they uncovered all these beautiful carvings and fantastic jewelry and different objects. I think there's always art and culture. It might not necessarily be what we recognize, but art is always there. Yes, I mean, I think if you've got, and we appreciate that not everybody does, but we've said this before, at the moment, if you've got the money for a subscription TV channel, if like us, it's usually really difficult to get to the cinema. At the moment, you can see home movies like no other because, of course, films are not coming out into the cinema. So, I think even as a sort of relatively short term subscription, it can be well worth it. What we do is we get the microwave popcorn. Sometimes we make shakes. Sometimes we have sweets, but we have a proper cinema night of it. So yeah, we were able to fit in a cinema night. What about the
Okay.
surgeoners?
Oh, well, we did two. It was a not very exciting weekend in the sense of um, we Josh and I both did two lots of land work sessions with two different swim groups. Um, Emily's been trying to record to make this make sense. She's learning the clarinet. Some of you might have heard her play in the past. Pattern, sorry, and um, she is trying to do the grade 3 exam, which isn't happening live as would normally happen in a room. So candidates have to video themselves performing the songs. But actually, I think it is far harder to do this than just going into a room and do the exam. I mean, we talked the other day about, we ended up, something that would normally take 5 minutes because you throw it out live, taking 2 hours because you're trying to get it perfect. And they're trying to record 4 songs, and every nuance you hear because you hear it back. And so it's been a tad frustrating. So we spent some time doing that as well.
I think it's really difficult. I mean, I think just to open up the conversation, we do have a youth program. We have a young artist, Hazel Brill, who's already an international artist, and she works part time on our youth development program. One of the things she's offering to young people who are out of school is the Arts Award program. So we have some people doing that, including our intern, Eve Smith. And Eve is another one who's applying for things at the moment. So Eve is applying to do her stage 4 in performing arts. And it's the same thing. Everybody wants a recording. And of course, like so many people, Eve has not been at home a lot because she's been shielding. They've gone away to relatives, then they've only had a mobile phone, they've had next door's Wi Fi. And there's this assumption with all of the drama schools and universities that they can just record their audition and somehow that's a level playing field. I think it's extraordinarily difficult. You know, if you're a young person going into a live audition, you've got exactly the same conditions as everybody else. You know, I appreciate that Patton is still finding it a huge struggle when you have your own studio, you know, and if you're trying to do something on your phone at grandma's. Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very difficult, I think, for the colleges and art and drama schools to try to be as inclusive as they can this year. And goodness knows they're not very inclusive to start with. But I don't
So
know what alternatives there are apart from, I think if something's live on Zoom, then at least you're putting the young people all back to the same position. And yeah, I think the pre-record is really tough.
yeah, absolutely. But hopefully they'll well, that it has to be submitted for Wednesday, and then. But we did. I mean, we did have some downtime. We've continued the Mario Kart challenge, of which Joshua maintains absolute superiority. But I made a third at one point. Uh, and lots of sport because we had rugby and there was the Manchester International Swim Meet, so it was a household of swimmers. Um, we kind of did that, and I even got to play the guitar. So
Do you know, I meant to watch the swimming because it was the first international swim meet there'd been all season, wasn't there? And it was on YouTube, not the sports channels or ITV. Presumably the recordings are still on YouTube.
I would imagine so. It's literally it's British Swimming's YouTube channel, and I think kind of almost everything that they've had up in it forever is on there, and it literally called the Manchester International. And I mean, there was some fabulous swimming, but looking at how well it was managed, they literally sprayed down the blocks between every heat and every final. They had, all the officials were masked, lots of space. I mean, it's a 50-meter international pool, so it has space, but normally it would be, um,
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in the sort of the theatre and the spectacle of the sport, and also just being able to pretend you're in the water, which I think if you're locked down, you know, is attractive. But absolutely, you know, arts events have yet to really ever get back on. You know, they've had little bits of starting up and then one night and then everything comes off again. So I think we can learn a lot just from watching the sports events. I mean, in terms of downtime, tomorrow, of course, is Pancake Day. And we were just chatting beforehand. I'm allergic to cow's dairy, which many people are. I'd just like to flag up two things. You know, you can make pancakes with alternative milks and indeed with egg substitutes. But Julie, you've managed to find a great vegan recipe, haven't you?
I have. It was on the BBC recipe site, and it uses a touch of soda bicarbonate and vanilla instead of egg.
Yes, you don't actually need much to make something rise.
No.
One of the things I've found with the bicarbonate of soda of years of being dairy allergic is if you just whisk it up a little bit with the milk or whatever you're using as milk, that can make it rise a lot better. So, what we're going to do is we'll put that recipe and indeed we'll put the link up again on our highlights and links page. If you go to our website www.together2012.org.uk, under the main Together Unlocked TV page, there's a pull down menu. The first thing you come to is highlights and links. That has any videos, pictures, anything else we show on the show. And of course, you can also look back to previous shows and indeed previous months. Of course, the other thing about Shrove Tuesday is it would be International Carnival Day. And I said I'd come back to Tobago. Last year, we were due to go to see Real Carnival in Tobago. And we were so looking forward to it because right since 2014, Together 2012 CIC was set up in 2013. And we've had a carnival arts program ever since 2014. Over more recent years, what we do is we work with Para Carnival. We take part in Hackney Carnival, where the Para Carnival Together contingent has been award winning the last 2 years we were there. We just say that smugly because most people in Hackney Carnival are from Hackney. So it's kind of nice to come in and win things like Judge's Choice and Best Theme Interpretation when you come from Newham, because there's always just that little bit of stuff there. And our trip just fell through last year, and it seemed to be not meant to happen, and thank goodness it didn't, because of course chances are we would have come back with more than just carnival souvenirs. But all over the world, from South America and the Caribbean to Germany, people would be celebrating Carnival tomorrow. So this is just a real shout out to our Carnival partners, and particularly to Para Carnival, New Carnival Company, and Callaloo Arts. And Callaloo Arts did a wonderful Carnival Arts inspired piece of work for our festival, Making History Together. And all of that remains online, including their work around Muertes Ofrendas. And what they are, just to get serious for a minute, are ways of paying tribute to people you've lost by setting up little shrines. And there's all sorts of details about how the Mexicans do that in the Day of the Dead festival, which coincided with when we launched the work. But the new Carnival Company and Callaloo Arts, we are working with on a project called The Open Road, which is a national project all about making Carnival accessible to and inclusive of all. Now, that, of course, has now got huge challenges. And at the moment, I'm not convinced that taking part in a traditional carnival in a traditional way is going to be possible for people like us for quite a long time to come. But it's a really interesting project. So we couldn't let Shrove Tuesday go past without saying, Happy Carnival Day. We'll all have to do something, even if it's just wearing our carnival gear. But moving on, we are celebrating on a regular daily basis LGBT plus History Month. And last week, regular viewers may remember that we had Pattern Surgeoner on to ask me some questions, because they're a school student, and LGBT plus History Month is first and foremost aimed at schools to, shall we say, remedy the deficiencies of the national curriculum. So I'm just going to put a few minutes more chat on where we talked a bit more about discrimination in schools, which I think sadly is something people will be all too familiar with, whether that comes in terms of disability, sexual and gender orientation, or indeed race and culture. But this, I say, is a more cheerful interview with Patton.
So there's less discrimination. Of course, there is still a lot out there, but I think it's
Yeah, you see, I think there's actually more discrimination in schools. And that, I think, is why so many adults are concerned to have LGBT plus History Month. And that's really just looking at the data. I mean, I remember back in the 60s being called a lesbian in the playground at primary school, but I didn't know what it meant. And I'm not entirely sure they knew either. And there was casual homophobia around at school, but nothing like the kind of attacks. And yeah, I mean, I think Section 28, which for those who don't know was a law brought in by Margaret Thatcher saying that schools could not support, must not, quote, promote alternative families. So, two women living with a cat was an alternative family that must never be promoted as something that is equal to a married couple with two children. And indeed, it still isn't. But I think that's done a huge amount of damage, although it was repealed quite some time ago. The kind of, and gay as an insult, that was never, that was just not the case when I was growing up. So, yeah, I kind of think a lot of us as adults think that young people maybe in some ways have it at least as tough, if not tougher, but just different. And I think this assumption that everything's equal and, oh, well, you can get married. So what's the problem?
yeah, yeah. It's like just because you have basic rights doesn't mean you have the like you have the same level of respect from other people. Like, yes, we might be able to get married, but a lot of people won't agree with it, and yeah,
Well, that's right. And I think, particularly living in Newham, where white people, well, I think white English people are 16% of the population, and the majority of people are people of faith. And the majority of people of colour and the majority of people of faith, when questioned, I think in reality, people are a lot more tolerant. But when questioned, say same sex relationships are always wrong. But yeah, I mean, I think as women, we know that we've got the right to equal pay, but we still don't get it. Sort of 40 years later, as disabled people, we've got all sorts of rights we don't get. So, yeah, absolutely. The fact that you have legal rights doesn't actually alter the way you're treated or discriminated against, or indeed, with any kind of discrimination, you are left pretty much to fight those cases on your own. So, if you're already in a more vulnerable position and you're the person left to fight the case, I know as somebody who's taken a discrimination case, it is very, very difficult.
yeah. It's, as you said, it the discrimination is different. So it may not be done as much by, like, schools might not be like specifically opposing the LGBT plus communities. Sorry, um, but the children will be, and it will be more targeted, because I'm not saying we shouldn't educate people, but because they're educated, they it's easier to target people, if you see what I mean.
Yes, I think I do. If you don't know that somebody exists, it's hard to bully them, although
Yeah,
very often they would be anyway. I mean, one of the things the LGBT plus History Month website offers is a range of resources. They're obviously not geared up to digital delivery because I guess, having been told all last summer by the government that the schools were definitely going to be running all winter, they didn't see the need. But one of the things I spotted just now is there's a great set of posters. So for every single subject on the curriculum, there's a poster featuring somebody from the community or communities, like you so rightly say, who's made a major contribution to that field. And having role models, because so often people grow up without role models, or they see drag queen race, which of course is, everybody loves RuPaul's drag queen race, but it's not representative of the vast majority, for example, of gay men. So if you've only got very partial pictures, sometimes you can think, but I don't want to be like that. And you think it's okay, we're a rainbow community for a reason. We come in every color, shape, and size.
yeah, yeah.
And thanks again for that pattern. So, LGBT plus History Month continues till the end of February and indeed beyond. I'm already getting booked up to do things in March and April simply because people haven't had time to fit it in. So, look out for some of those later events as well. If you go to the LGBT plus History Month website, there's a calendar of events. There's lots of things to do every single day, so I can only pick one out. But at 5 o'clock this afternoon, free and online, there's a wonderful film event called Trans Infinite, where they've put together a collection of, I think it's 6 short films about trans, queer, and non binary superheroes. So if you fancy an hour and a half of superhero screenings, then we'll be popping that link up. But before that, you can just go to the calendar section on the LGBT plus history website. So now it is time for our regular weekly update. And I believe, Robin, you're going to kick us off.
Yes, indeed. So I've been scouring, trying to keep coming up with free apps, which is increasingly difficult. I think there seems to be more apps, but more people recognizing that actually, particularly now that we're so much more focused on being at home, that they're monetizing their work, and I'm not going to complain. I mean, no, sorry, I can't condemn them for doing that, because they're, it's like an artist. It's lovely to get paid for what you do. Um, but it just means that it's harder to keep searching. And I found a few, and they come up, and it's very annoying when they don't tell you in the listings that, yeah, you can download it, but you can't do anything until you buy a um, subscription. And kind of as you said earlier, subscriptions are fine, um, but you could end up with loads. And I think that's the issue, because you go, oh, I like this app, and that's a fiver a month, and you add this one up, and that's another £4 a month, and all of a sudden you've got loads of apps you haven't got the time to use, and paying for them all on a kind of commitment. So first thing is, if you do choose a one with a subscription, be very wary of your own ability to use it and pay for it.
Yeah, I was gonna chuck a tip in there from Saturday where I learned the hard way, and I needed an auto cue, or as the Americans say, a teleprompt app. And I thought, I don't want to buy a free, I don't want to get a so-called free one with in-app purchases, because then it's going to hold me up, just like you say, along the line, or you do something and realize you can't save it. So I thought, okay, I'll pay for one, and I paid for it, and I got it up on my computer, and it just didn't do what I wanted to do. So I went down the alternative route that I probably should have gone down in the first place, where I went for a more expensive option that had a month's free demo, and it was brilliant. So I'm actually going to buy it.
Oh, okay, that's good.
But it used to be in the old days, every single app you could find a demo version of. What I discovered with this one is I could get the demo version. Could I get it from the App Store? Sometimes it's easier to get the demo version if you go to the manufacturer's website. So there was another app, for example, I use Cyberduck to put things up onto my personal website. Because if you don't have a WordPress website, you need something called a file transfer protocol program. And I've used Cyberduck for years for absolutely nothing. And you can choose, it's shareware, you can choose to register it, you can choose to make a donation, and I've always meant to. But when I found it in the App Store, you have to pay for it from the start. So that's another tip I would say, is if you're looking at an app but you're not 100% certain, or you really need to use an expensive app but you absolutely can't afford to subscribe, look for the demo versions. But like I say, follow, get the full name of the developer from the App Store, or Google Play as the Android store is known, but then go onto the manufacturer's website. I was quite surprised to be reminded just how much these things varied across the sort of wild west that is the internet.
Thanks, Drew. And then so I did eventually find an app. And well, I came across it, and I thought, "Oh, I'm sure Josh had mentioned that one before," and it turned out he had. So I thought I would actually try using it. So it's an app called Autodesk Sketchbook, which is indeed free, or certainly at the level I was using it, and I didn't see anything about um, it costing more. Um, and I don't know if you've got the pictures that I sent you, but I thought,
Yes, I can. Let me just pop the photo up you've sent me first, and you can just audio describe it.
okay, right. So this is the picture of our back garden, from our kitchen door, and what it is, it's showing a semicircular raised decking area with a brick wall, and then a ramp from the higher area that follows the curve of the wall down to the grassed area of the garden.
Great. And I'm just going to take the solo off for that for a minute. And then do you want to tell us what the app does, and then we'll show the result?
Okay, so I thought, well, I know there are various kind of shapes and things you can do, but I thought I would actually try and free draw it. Um, yes, I did. I made that decision, uh, and basically you can choose different size pens, different width pens, spray cans, paint brushes, um, and sort of auto styles. That fill the space. It doesn't draw anything for you, but like a spray gun, but rather than it being just a block color, it's a bit more like a splatter, for example, and stuff like that. But it was very easy to sort of, there you've got a picture on the side of the screen which has got the pictures. You've got a typical kind of color wheel which you click somewhere in it what you want, and then that expands to then give you much, kind of infinite options within green or between green and yellow and stuff like that. um and
It
like,
does sound excellent because, I mean, maybe it's just the age of the apps, because again, I think that's probably another tip, isn't it? Kind of look out for apps at least every 6 months because there may be something better. But the apps I tend to use for drawing, you know, they offer those things, but it doesn't sound like in half so much detail. And I think that's another thing, isn't it? You don't want an app that's too basic.
no. And
You
I
want
mean, I guess you could go anywhere from this. I mean, like, um a lot of the apps, I mean, so I was drawing lines and I did some awful lines, but I was able to just do an immediate edit and take that line out, and attempt to redraw it. um Again, I was literally using my finger on the trackpad, and I worked out that I could draw curves with my left finger but not vertical lines, but I could draw vertical lines with my right finger, or vertical-ish, as you'll see when the picture comes up. Um, but it was
reason I use those apps actually is because my hands are just not good enough these days, or possibly ever, to do well with a paintbrush or a pen. But what I find with the iPad or the phone is that if you're using what's effectively a finger painting on the touch screen, it's much, much easier if you've got problems with fine motor control and so on. And indeed, I've had friends who've learnt to draw using those programs with their nose.
wow.
Interestingly enough, they again, I just throw this in as a tip. You would think that having a standard sized tablet would be easier than having a small one. But certainly one of the artists I know who draws with their nose found the iPad mini was actually much better. And then they're just moving the drawing area around, but you're not having to move around such a big screen size.
Hmm.
Shall we see what you did and you can tell us a bit more about it?
Okay. So, it does actually, quite surprisingly, look a bit like our garden. So what I did was first of all, if you imagine there kind of there are, uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 sort of, curves, that follow the line. So the decking, then the brick wall, the top of the brick wall, then the edge of the ramp on the outside, and the inside, and then the outside of the edge of the ramp. So I drew those first to try to hopefully get some correct balance and perspective. And of course, at that point, it only looked like 5 curves. So then I worked out how to kind of work out how I brought in, um, some sense of 3 dimensions, which is then when I then started putting in the upright lines to create the brick wall. I mean, and as you'd have seen in the pictures of the garden, the top of the wall has like a grey brick to finish it off. I mean, the drawing shows a very odd size set of bricks, but um,
No, I think it looks fabulous and much more ambitious than anything I've done with my finger painting. And is it available for Android and Mac?
I'm afraid that's not an answer I know. I was trying to find something that was going to load, use, and then try using it. I mean, and I was actually quite pleased with it. I mean,
I
considering I
think it
haven't
looks
drawn
great.
anything in years and years, um, and was never very good at drawing in the first place, not freehand. But I did do, when I was an apprentice many, many, many years ago as an engineer. I did 2 years in a drawing office, so I guess I was able to understand. I'm not these days whether it's perspective, but the depth to create the idea that it wasn't just a flat picture, but there was, to use the different angles to show that you've got a front wall and then it curving round and stuff. So I guess that stuff stuck with me. Um, but now I've done that. I mean, when next time I'll get to draw, I'm really not sure. But it made me go, well, actually, it does look. You can look at the 2 pictures and see that one is a representation of the other one.
Yes, and of course, you don't even have to show anybody the first. So I'll just leave you again with the fact that I think the single most useful thing, if you're not very confident in your drawing, as I'm not, is the fact that you can just rub it straight out again with the stroke of a key. We're going to finish app date with what we call one of our short auntie films. Not about our short auntie, but a short version of our WhatsApp auntie films that we produced last August when the NHS COVID-19 app was just being launched. It stars the very wonderful actor and TV presenter Sahira Khan, so it's worth watching for that alone. But we thought 23 million apps downloaded, we might also just remind ourselves for when we get back out into the real world what those phones are for. And also for anybody who got a new smartphone at Christmas and still hasn't downloaded it. So we'll say goodbye to Auto Sketch. All of the details, including what platform it's available for, will be on our highlights and links page, and there'll also be a link to the full Auntie film.
What's up, Auntie?
What are you looking at?
The new NHS COVID-19 app, Auntie.
What's that?
It's a new way to fight coronavirus using our phones. It'll help everyone to protect each other and save lives. Let me explain. The app works in 6 different ways. If you become ill, the app helps you to check if you have coronavirus symptoms. If you do have coronavirus symptoms, the app helps you to book a test. This test can be carried out at home, at a walk-in centre, or at a drive-in centre. If you do test positive for coronavirus, you tell the app on your phone. Then you isolate, which is stay at home alone, for 2 weeks after your symptoms started. After that, you should no longer be infectious. While you're isolating, the app provides you with advice and support. Isolating is essential to stop the virus spreading. The app tells all of the phones that have been closer to you than 2 meters for at least 15 minutes over the past 2 weeks. The apps on those phones then alert their owners to isolate in case they're infected too. They can then book their own tests using the app.
Will you help me to install the app now, please?
Yes, of course, Auntie. Support the app. Support the NHS. Save lives.
And thank you again, Sahira. We'll be seeing more of Sahira's work again soon. So we're moving on. On a Monday, we talk about film and photography. That's partly because on the second Monday of every month, we have our photographers and filmmakers clubs. Our club's program is open to any disabled person and anybody they want to bring with them. Usually we say if you can get to East London, but now we say if you can get onto Zoom. We've cut the length of our clubs down to an hour to make it a bit more manageable. But on the second Monday, like I say, we have Photographers and Filmmakers Club. Next Monday, which will be the fourth Monday, we have our Dance on Screen Club, where we were already making masked dance for the screen. So that was, yes, very fortunate. On a Tuesday morning, we have the art clubs make a natter session, and they have a still life session on a Friday. And then on a Wednesday, the pop up poetry club meets, and they meet by phone. We call you and we pay all of the costs. I'm going to put the links and details up on the highlights and links page. And on Wednesday, we will have poetry from the pop up poetry club. And if you want to join in from home, Julie, what's this week's theme?
It's decoupage, which is cutting up bits of pictures and
No,
so
no, the
on.
poetry theme,
Oh,
darling.
sorry, the poetry theme is a February morning.
A February morning. So slightly different to a frosty morning, which I think they did last month. And it could even be what happens tomorrow on Pancake Day. So yeah, if you'd like to join in from home and you'd like us to showcase your poems on the show, send us your videos or your poems to read out to info@together2012.org.uk. So, Julie, we've been looking at some LGBT plus famous photographers, and this week I believe you wanted to talk about Cecil Beaton.
Yes, I thought, given that it's History Month, it's always useful to look at a bit of history. Cecil Beaton was a very interesting man. He was born at the turn of last century. He was extraordinarily privileged, really rich. I mean, an indication of that is that he learned how to take photographs from his nanny, which I think is quite amusing. But, he was well schooled. He was well heeled. He basically sort of was sent to Cambridge, I think, as part of that pathway to take over his father's business interests, and he didn't. He didn't finish his course, and he was absolutely obsessed with his photography. He became a fashion photographer sort of very early on. He was born in 1904, so he missed the war, the First World War, and sort of during the 20s and 30s, he was developing his portraiture, and he had a very interesting eye. He was a bit like Annie Leibovitz in as much as he was photographing sort of people who were famous as well as ordinary people, but from a very different perspective. Predominantly, his work was black and white, obviously in the early days, and he liked. Excuse me.
So, just to apologise, we don't have any photos for copyright reasons to pop up on screen, but we will put a link in on the highlights and links page. Was there a disability angle?
No, not really. He was just really from the the gay history side of things.
No, I just wondered. I mean, it's not compulsory.
Oh, I know it's not.
It's just that so many of our community are disabled and always have been. So,
Well, no, I mean, I just thought he would be interesting to look at because he was so different from Annie Leibovitz. As I said, they were both photographing famous people. Interestingly, during the Second World War, he was sent to the Ministry of Information, and his war photography was attributed to the Americans wanting to come into the war. He had a very famous photograph of a little girl in a cot, about 4 or 5 years old, with a teddy or a doll. Um, and it got a lot of publicity. She was in Great Ormond Street, and it got an awful lot of publicity. And that photograph was extraordinarily powerful. But he also took a lot of photographs of the Blitz. And again, it's an interesting record. If we're looking at history, it's an interesting record. Um, after the after the war, he travelled a lot, and he got caught up with Vogue and Vanity Fair, etc. He was a very favourite photographer of the royal family.
and that's how I remember is just seeing him as a royal photographer. Well, that's fascinating. So we'll put the links up so you can look at the photographs for yourself. And I believe now, Robin, you've got some information for people who want to start streaming. You may well look at us and think if they can do it, we can. And that's absolutely right. Together, we believe everybody has something to teach and everybody has something to learn. We were inspired in our founding by the head of external inclusion for London 2012, the late David Morris, who was a great punk poet and filmmaker. I think we've all got. So I think what? How do you describe yourself, Robin? Folk punk,
Yeah,
not
folk punk, folk punk poet. Yeah.
and I started my career as a fanzine editor, so we've got quite a lot of punk ethos, and we genuinely believe that everybody should give it a try, and everybody can achieve a lot more than you think. So, what's this streaming site, Robin?
Okay, so again, I mean, I came across this in searching for stuff this morning, um, uh, and I think it is Australian to so there are some links in it, and when I've clicked the links for equipment, it kind of takes you to things in Australian dollars. But essentially, what it is, it's a PDF, an online booklet, um, giving anyone the basic details of what you need to start streaming. Now, if you look at it, it's actually called Live Stream Sports in 5 Easy Steps. Um, I think that's probably because it's Australian, because everything in Australian is sporty. We know that. Um,
So they're allowed to do sport at the moment.
I'm not sure actually in Australia what's going on with live sport. Um, but essentially it gives it's 5 steps. It's got choose your hardware, install vision mixing software. Now, an example of that would be if you watch, in our show, when our screens change and Jill will bring up the images like she did earlier. The fact that we've got 2 images on screen at the moment, that is kind of the very essence of visual mixing. um, and then it says add live graphics. Again, if you're doing sport, then you might want to put scores and things up. But I think there's a huge amount of similarity in this that would be for putting on live events. So you want to be able to, if you've got somebody performing a poem or some music, you want to run underneath some lyrics, or you might, just simply the name of the artist or the name of the piece that they're doing. So again, a lot of similarity. And then there is the option to run tests and go live, and this particular website then does look at you linking into them, and they provide a whole load of um, like templates and things that you can use for putting sports of for scores. um, but I think that the principle of it is it's exactly the same, and that's kind of what I was really looking at it for. I mean, yeah, it might be great for us as a swim coach. um, there might be things that are really useful, but I think the whole idea, and particularly the very simple idea of it, looks at about software from, what sort of camera do you need? A camcorder? Can you use a phone? Can you, whatever? Whether you do need particular software. It talks a lot about something called OBS, which is Open Broadcasting Software. Um,
Yes, no, I can talk a little bit more about that briefly. All live streaming, whoever does it, whether it's the BBC, ITV, ourselves, or somebody going straight into YouTube, is using something that's called open broadcasting software. We use a system more or less successfully, as regulars may know, run by a company called Be Live. And what they do is effectively write their own app that incorporates the OBS, but also gives you the sort of vision mixing and so on functions of that in a theoretically at least more accessible format. But we have to pay for that. They have a free version. So again, don't dismiss these things because most of them have a free version. They limit you on how many shows you can do and what length, but that may not be a problem. And certainly you want to try it before you subscribe. But you can simply open up OBS, which is completely free, totally free to download. Not the easiest thing in the world to program, but there's lots and lots and lots of YouTube videos out there. So you can absolutely, if you've got an internet connection, you need a YouTube account or a Facebook Live account or some other account that's going to allow you to stream live. But you don't, if, obviously you need money to have all of those things, but you don't need more than that. I mean, I don't know whether the links would work in Australia, whether, we could be hosted in Australia and streaming to the UK. But again, I just think the things that make it simple are so helpful. I mean, we had no idea we set this stream up on the 30th of March 2020, and on the 1st of March we had absolutely no plans to do it. I think we set up the web-based join in from home program on the 10th of March, and the following week the feedback was that people needed live video to be able to engage. But now people can actually plan. But those things that just told you really, really basic things, I have lots of different cameras, but the reality is that computers can only deal with one webcam. So unless you have another system to sort of mix different computers in, just learning that you don't have to worry about setting up 3 cameras because you can't use them was actually quite helpful. Julie, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you're right about it being a learning experience. And we continue to learn.
And that anyone can do it. Yeah, I think it sounds like a really, really great place to start. And of course, we welcome your queries as well. So if there's a question that we can answer because you want to start streaming, or you've got a stream around the arts or disability that you want us to promote, just get in touch. I'm going to put it up on the bottom of the screen, but it's info@together2012.org.uk. So, what have we got in the rest of the show? Well, as always, today we are going to finish, as it's a Monday, with a relaxation session. And Arwa Jagney, who produces our usual Relax with Arwa, had her own streaming problems on Saturday. So we'll put the link up anyway. Arwa runs her own, well, it's really a yoga channel, Relax with Arwa. We hop in on a Monday for the last 5 minutes of her sessions on a Saturday. But as we have our very own Paralympian top swimming coach with us, yes, we just like to use him for as much as we possibly can. So in a few minutes' time, we'll be relaxing with Robin instead. Before that, we should flag up Wednesday, and my little Canadian teddy bear sitting all the way back here. He's probably slightly invisible and practically invisible now, particularly because I can't get him in the right place. So I'm going to give Julie the teddy. On a Wednesday, we have our regular feature, the Clockwork Paralympics, where our Paralympian family get very hot under the collar to see there's their competitor wearing its medal. But yes, our Paralympians get very hot under the collar, wondering whether they or us are going to win what's actually a game of chance. We race Clockwork toys to see which teddy is going to be the medal bearer that week. And we have our teddy bears not just because we can't live without them, but because ever since last year we've been celebrating and supporting the virtual teddy bear hunt. If you have a stream or you simply have a window and you have a teddy, make a young person's day, stick that teddy bear where they can see it and they can add it to their bear hunt. Young people a little bit short on laughs and stimulation at the moment. So Robin will be competing to see which of his house full of medals will be adorning his teddy bear. And we will go back to the fact we've got lots of teddy bears, so we'll have a new competitor on Wednesday, but we've only got one gold plastic medal. I think our bear deserves a medal. This is really going to upset Robin. Oh, look, he didn't win. He's still got a medal. Dum-de-dum. Also, on a Wednesday, we'll have Josh back with us for his gaming and sports report. And of course, as I said earlier, lots and lots of poems from the Pop Up Poetry Club. If you'd like to join the Pop Up Poetry Club, The information is on screen now. Contact us at info@together2012.org.uk. And of course, really looking ahead, considering it's only Monday, on Friday, we always start by dressing up to go out to stay in. So we would love to see your pictures and videos of you dressed up to go out to stay in. Please do share them with us. The details are at the bottom of the screen. But I think, Judy, it's just about time that ourselves and our lovely teddy bear said goodbye and let everybody relax with Robin, not least ourselves. Are you ready, Robin, if we say goodbye?
I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
Yeah, that's a whole different issue, isn't it? Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your company, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Oh, well, okay, we get the full width of the shot now. Apologies for a little bit of window in the corner there. Now, I thought that today we would make our relaxation uh, totally inside. So we're not going to need to use arms or legs or anything. I think just control of our breathing and our eyes. Now, I would. So the first thing we're going to do is literally just relax. Get yourself somewhere, wherever you are, the most relaxed you can feel. If you need 20 seconds to lie down and still listen, I'll give you that time just to get into a nice, relaxed space. Relaxing is all about pace. Sometimes you can hear a ticking clock. Sometimes silence is all you need. Sometimes you want something that works with you. But I want you to now to just breathe in nice and slowly. Breathe in through your nose. Hold it for a couple of seconds and then breathe out again. As a sports person, um, the most relaxed you need to be, other than when you're actually asleep, is immediately before you compete, which often sounds really silly, um, but you use more energy for your nerves, or certainly a huge amount of energy. If you're nervous, your muscles are all tense before you go into an activity. Those muscles are already eating away your oxygen and eating away your energy reserves. So we need to be relaxed. So similarly, if you want to, thinking about when you can't get to sleep at night, do you have any tips? Do you have any ways of doing it? It's a strange one, but I do a number of different ones. One is the one that is, I think, actually lifted from the American Marines, is where you, in your mind, you use your breathing to draw a square. So what you do is, as you imagine the square has got 4 lines, you breathe in, which is the first line. Then you hold for 4 seconds, which is the second line going across the top. Then you breathe out for 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4, and then hold for 4 seconds as you draw the line across the bottom. So we're going to do that now. You're going to do that. I will speak it, which makes it a little hard to hold your breath. So we're going to breathe. We're going to make a box of 4 lines. Doesn't matter where you start, but your first line is to breathe in. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Then hold that breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. Then breathe out slowly through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then hold that breath out 4 seconds. Now you can do that a few times and you should feel yourself calming down. sometimes when you start, because it's a new exercise, you think, oh, am I doing this right? And that can kind of actually speed your heart up a little bit. Um, but as you get used to doing it, and it's all about these activities, feel yourself as you do that. Feel the weight sinking down through your body and out of you. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter how much body you've got. Okay. Whether you know, for me, I feel it and it comes out my knees. I've got feet, but I wouldn't know anything was coming out of them. So for me, I feel the energy coming down as I make that box and I breathe out, coming down through my body and out through my knees. Might sound silly, but it's just a fantastic way of just relaxing. Actually, feel yourself gently pushing any anxiety out of your body as you do those breathing exercises. So we're going to do that. We're going to do it together now one more time. So we're going to go breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then hold your breath for those 4 and feel any anxiety oozing out of you till you feel completely and wonderfully relaxed. Feel free to carry this on for as long as you need to when the show finishes. I hope that's been of some use to you in relaxing, and I look forward to seeing everybody on Wednesday. Bye for now.